Europe has an even deeper problem with this, though, and this is the one. This is why I'm more pessimistic on Europe than I actually am on the United States. I think Trump could be a flash in the pan here for various reasons I'll go into, but I think Europe's really screwed, and it actually has to do with something that the trumpets of the left and right in Europe get, which is that the euro is a disaster. And here's why. The way they used to talk about Europe as a joke was either it was Protestants in the north and Catholics in the south, right? And the other one was the olive oil butter line. So you knew what country you were in if you were putting butter on bread, you were in the north, and olive oil was in the south, right? And I've always, there's a great New Yorker cartoon from years ago where like two older guys are sitting in a restaurant and the waiter comes up and puts something on, and the caption is, "Remember when they used to give us butter?" Just like that cultural change. But there was the olive oil butter line. That actually now maps onto something very interesting, which is basically who exports to the rest of the world and earns money, and who doesn't. So what you've got basically in short form is the Germans moved all their parts suppliers into Eastern Europe. They did a kind of globalization, but only within Eastern Europe. And when you get to Eastern Europe, you get to a place like Romania, you find that you've got very highly skilled workers. Really, really good engineers, great mathematics education. It goes back to the communist era and the whole notion of independence that they had then, all that sort of stuff, so technical schools, etc. So you're getting people that can do all the stuff you can do in Germany for a third of the price. So if you drive a Mercedes in the United States, there's a very good chance that the transmission was actually built and assembled in Romania, then shipped over here and bolted together. And it's a German car, right? So think about what that means. Technological disruption, supply chains, etc. So if you're Eastern Europe or you're Germany, you're selling to the Chinese and the Americans, you're making it like a bandit. So if you look at the surplus of these countries, their export surplus is huge, right? Now, here's the problem. You look at France and you look at Spain and you look at Italy, most of Italy at least, they can't play that game. Because they're not big export countries. They're large consumption economies. Now, if they had their own money, if somebody's running a surplus, then somebody else logically has to be running a deficit. And if they had their own money, they could essentially devalue or whatever. You can do lots of things to protect yourself. But you're all sharing the same currency. And they've also signed a set of agreements in 2012 called the Fiscal Compact, which is insanity, which basically bans fiscal policy in the Eurozone. So what this means is that there's an identity in the national accounts between external surpluses and internal deficits. You basically, if you're running a big surplus, somebody else has to run a deficit. But if you don't allow them to run the deficit, the only thing they can do is permanently constrict their economy. So you're asking basically the French and the Spanish and the Italians to run permanent austerity budgets so that the Germans, the Poles and the Romanians can make money hand over fist selling to the Americans and the Chinese. Do you think that's going to piss off the National Front? Do you think that might actually, if it continues for several years, really push them over the edge? And they show no signs of peddling that one back.